into the ocean where they otherwise could have stored it. If you're talking about low-income communities being impacted, well, let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about how our energy independence.
The floor of Congress is rarely a place for subtle policy debate. It's a stage for high-stakes drama. And recently, Representatives Lauren Boebert and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez put on a show. At the heart of the issue, fossil fuels, baby, AOC proposed an amendment. On the surface, it sounded harmless, more transparency in fossil fuel operations. Sounds reasonable, right? Not so fast, says Boebert. Boebert smelled a rat, a big, green, renewable energy-powered rat. This wasn't about transparency, she argued. It was a sneak attack, a way to slap so many regulations on the fossil fuel industry that it would just wither away. Boebert, ever the defender of American energy, wasn't having it. She saw through the charade. This wasn't about facts, it was about ideology. Boebert pointed out that when it comes to fossil fuels, not all sources are created equal. American oil and gas, she argued, are the cleanest in the world. We've got the technology, the regulations, the whole shebang. Why rely on dirty energy from...
Gentleman yields back. Does anyone else wish to be recognized?
Mr. Chairman.
Gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. Boebert, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with this amendment, I don't think any of us are opposed to actually having oversight to understand the health and safety with our fossil fuel productions. We want you to know the truth. We want you to see these reports. But as the gentleman from Wisconsin stated, there was a but in that. Not at this time. At this time, we aren't going to use that to go against fossil fuels, but we will use it later. We have been studying the science of fossil fuels. I worked in the oil and gas industry myself, and I know that no one produces energy better than we do, cleaner than we do. And instead, we have an administration right now that's begging Iran, begging Venezuela, begging Saudi Arabia, emptying our strategic petroleum reserves in the name of a midterm election. This is not in the name of public health and safety. This was in the name of an election to get fuel prices down $1 or $2 so they wouldn't have a complete decimation of their party and they would still hold on to their levers of power. And thankfully, the American people saw through some of that. But I mean, just going through this, fossil fuel extraction is a significant driver of carbon pollution. If carbon pollution is your main aim, then let's talk about managing our forests, because one catastrophic wildfire emits more carbon emissions in a few short days than every vehicle in my...
Boebert wasn't finished. She turned her attention to the Biden administration's energy policies. They're buying oil from Iran and Venezuela, she exclaimed. Countries that wouldn't know environmental regulations if they hit them in the face. It's hypocrisy, plain and simple. The administration restricts American energy production, then turns around and makes deals with some of the world's worst polluters. Boebert then did what she does best. She brought it home. She reminded everyone about the devastating wildfires that have ravaged her home state of Colorado. These fires, she argued, are not the fault of fossil fuels. They're the result of years of misguided environmental policies. We're so busy demonizing oil and gas, she declared, that we've forgotten how to manage our forests. And it wasn't just forest management. Boebert pointed to California's water policies. They're dumping precious fresh water into the ocean, she exclaimed, while farmers are struggling with drought. It's a classic example, she argued, of misplaced priorities. We're so focused on the sexy environmental issues like climate change that we're ignoring the practical, everyday problems that are hurting real people. Boebert had a point. Climate change is a serious issue.
24/7 for an entire year. So if carbon pollution is what you're after here, then let's get together and manage our forests. We have 6 billion standing dead trees in the western United States, all creating a massive tinderbox waiting to ignite. If you want to talk about water quality, then again, let's talk about managing our forests, because healthy forests have healthy watersheds. We can have water resiliency discussions and water storage discussions where we're seeing policies in states like California where they're dumping hundreds of billions of gallons of water into the ocean where they otherwise could have stored it. If you're talking about low-income communities being impacted, well, let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about how our energy independence lowers inflation. And that's something that this administration surrendered on day one. This is something that they attacked immediately. We should be energy dominant right now. Our natural gas is 42% cleaner than Russia's. So why are you supporting Russia and their energy production and not America? Why are you pro-Putin when it comes to natural gas? Let's export liberty, export freedom around the globe and send our clean LNG to these countries who are currently relying on dictators. And when you're talking about the
Climate change is a serious issue, no doubt about it, but it's not the only environmental challenge we face, and it's certainly not an excuse to ignore other pressing problems like wildfires, drought and forest management. Boebert then aimed her sights at what she called climate extremists. These are the folks, she said, who are so obsessed with their ideology that they're willing to sacrifice affordable and reliable energy for everyone else. They drive their Teslas, she argued, while working families struggle to afford gas to get to work. But Boebert had a solution: natural gas. It's cleaner than coal, she declared, and it can provide a bridge to a cleaner energy future. She even had a real-world example. An indigenous tribe in her district is operating a zero-emissions natural gas plant. That's innovation, folks, she exclaimed. In the end, Boebert's message was clear.
Relying on dictators. And when you're talking about the indigenous communities, well, I invite you all to come to my district where one of our tribes has the first ever zero emissions net power natural gas fired plant. This is innovative. And this is what we should be doing with our other plants, our coal-fired energy plant in Craig, Colorado. I would love to see that transition into what our tribes are doing on their reservations, on their tribal land. And so come out and see what this looks like. See what this net zero energy production actually looks like. Even in Colorado, our coal is arguably the cleanest coal in the world. And climate extremists are sacrificing that at the altar of climate change. And look, I'm not here to deny climate change. I don't think anyone here is. It happens 4 times every year. We're very, very much aware of that. And what we can do to lessen pollutants, we're here for it. That's why we are pro natural gas. That's why we want to lower folks' energy bills. Have you seen the price of energy bills lately? That's because we're banning gas electronics, appliances. That's because we're pushing all of this green energy that's not efficient, it's not reliable, it's not renewable. And I would love to see an actual study on our fossil fuel production, but not in this manner because there are hidden elements in it. And for that reason, I will be opposing this amendment. And I yield back, Mr. Chair.
This wasn't about transparency, it was about control, it was about using the power of the federal government to punish a vital American industry, and she wasn't going to stand for it. She urged her colleagues to reject the amendment and to embrace a more balanced approach to energy policy, one that recognizes the importance of fossil fuels while also investing in innovation and new technologies. Boebert concluded her speech with a warning about the hidden costs of green energy initiatives. They sound great on paper, she said, but in reality they're often inefficient, unreliable and incredibly expensive. Boebert believed that chasing these green dreams would ultimately hurt the very people they're supposed to help. The vote on AOC's amendment was a foregone conclusion. Boebert and her allies had successfully painted it as an extremist attack on American energy. The amendment was defeated and the debate over fossil fuels raged on. One thing was clear, this was just one battle in a much larger war over the future